Now we're going to start the initial hoof trim. Now to apply a set of wood blocks on a foundered horse. Initially we start with a block that's not on the foot, but today we have already a set of blocks on this horse, so we're going to go ahead, show you how to remove the blocks and then evaluate the foot. Take your nippers on the edge, cut that casting off and just peel it back, then clean up underneath the screws to where your nut driver and screwdriver can remove the blocks. Now just take your screw gun and remove all the screws and then remove the block. Sometimes you'll need to pry the block off if the echo pack is stuck to the foot. Most of the time it comes right off. Go ahead and clean your foot up and be ready for your initial trim. Keep testing to make sure that you're not getting the foot too short into the sensitive tissues. After your foot's prepared, it's ready to trim. We're going to trim according to the x-rays that you've looked at on the horse initially. The benefit of putting these blocks on is being able to get the breakover around the edge of the coffin bone. Now that we have the sole prepared, we're going to go ahead and remove the amount of heel and toe that we need to get the breakover as close to possible before applying and building the block to this horse's foot. This horse had an abscess up in the medial toe quarter. You can see in that dark spot that we're pointing at right now. Here are all the materials that we're going to use to apply the wood block, everything but the wood block. You have your 1 1/8" drywall screws, your echo pack that we use underneath the wood block, your plastic wrap that wraps around the casting material. Now on the casting material, we're going to use half a roll on each foot, so sometimes this takes a little bit of speed to get it taken care of. Then you have your application tips that work with the echo pack. Okay, now we're going to prepare the wood block, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the wood block, put it underneath the horse's foot, and take a Sharpie along the outside edge of the hoof wall. Make sure that you don't draw in towards the hoof wall. Just keep it along straight with the hoof wall from the cornet band down. That way it gives you a perimeter fit. And then we're also going to trim the wood block a little bit to the outside. Mark each foot when you're done with left or right. That just gives me a reference while I'm at my truck where I don't mess them up. Here we are, we're going to be cutting the wood block. I use a jigsaw that's mounted in my truck to remove. Now make sure that you stay about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch on the outside of your marker in case you have to put rail screws with a horse that doesn't have a good hoof wall. Other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. Once we get the block prepared, we're going to go ahead and start grinding the hoof surface side, or the ground surface side, I'm sorry. We're going to do the ground surface side, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the perimeter of that wood block to the exact position of his coffin bone. So essentially when that horse steps down, it's like he's just literally standing straight on his coffin bone and can break any direction he wants. And that way we don't have any pressure on any collateral ligaments or deep flexor or anything like that. So just go ahead and bevel a good 45 degree is what you end up with when you do that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start on the bottom of the hoof, or the foot surface side, and I groove from each corner towards the center of the toe to start with, and that gives me a place to be able to stick my EquiPack tubes in, and it won't have restriction with the hoof. Now the important part on grinding and beveling out this wood block is to make sure that the horse has anywhere from 10 to 15 millimeters of EquiPack underneath his foot. That's including the sole that he has. Don't include that with your sole measurement. So you want to build a 15 millimeter depth into that sole of that wood block to where you can fill that with EquiPack. For some reason, that 15 millimeters of EquiPack underneath there get my horses a lot more comfortable, and I grow a lot more foot a lot quicker. And that's what it should look like when you end up with it. That frog support in the center wasn't initially ever intended that, but it ended up working pretty good in that aspect. Now we're going to go ahead and start our screws. What I do is come up the hoof wall about 1/4 of an inch and drive to where I'm just right in the middle of the white line going in. So get your first 2 toe screws started. Then you can go ahead and bring up your wood block and get ready to apply it. It always helps if there's 2 people, one that can hold the wood block and somebody else that can drive the screws. When you're driving that screw, just take it to the hoof capsule. Do not force it down into the hoof capsule and compress that hoof capsule in any manner. Then I just go ahead and put 2 extra screws on each side, just like you were nailing one up. And it's pretty basic and pretty simple to do. Just go ahead and apply each side. Now that you got the first foot taken care of, go ahead and put your 2 toe screws in your second hoof and get the screw set on it too. And after that, go ahead and start with the EquiPack. Okay. Now we're getting ready to fill. There's the 2 grooves in that wood block that make it to where that tip can go in and make sure the EquiPack gets all the way up to the toe and takes care of making sure that you have the 15 millimeters EquiPack underneath. Make sure that you go ahead and fill the wood block up all the way, and I like it to where it runs over just a little bit and down to the hoof wall and along the block. For some reason the casting material seems to stick into it a little better, and it's easier to make it attach to the hoof capsule a little more. Right here you can see where I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more down each edge to where that runs down the hoof wall and onto the wood block. And that just helps the casting material stick a little better. Walk around and make sure that you get the other one. In the heat of the summer you got to hurry because that echo pack will want to start setting up inside that tip, so you don't have to use another tip each time. Just go ahead and fill each foot up to where it runs over just a little bit, and then we'll be ready to cast it on here in just a second. Once again, let that roll over and down that hoof wall and on the top of the wood block. Alright, now we're going to start casting, and the best thing to do is have two of you when you do this, so one guy can cut the casting material. We're going to start wrapping the casting material around, and we're going to make 5 wraps around the hoof capsule. Usually depending on the size of the hoof capsule. If it's a big hoof you can only go 4, but most of the time you can go 5 wraps around that hoof capsule. Then have somebody cut it, take your plastic wrap and wrap that plastic around to hold the casting material in place while you go to the other foot. This way you only have to use 1 roll of casting material instead of 2. Makes it just a little more efficient. You'll use the rest of the whole roll on this. You won't have to cut again. And just wrap it around. Finish it up. End up pulling a plastic wrap. There you got it. Just a few more steps and we'll be done. Gotta let that casting material set up for roughly 2 to 3 minutes to where it starts getting firm. And you want to make sure that you remove the plastic wrap off the feet so it doesn't fall off in the stall, the horse eats it and then end up colicking and have the vet yelling at you because you caused the horse to colic because of the plastic wrap. Then you're going to remove the casting material up next to the bulbs. Get rid of all that casting material to where it doesn't rub any sores into the bulbs. Remove that excess casting material and just take your loop knife or hoof knife. I use my loop knife and just cut that out of the way just to where there's no pressure onto that bulb to where it can cause any irritation, because some of these horses are so sensitive that it'll cause an abscess within a day or 2. There you have it guys, pretty easy, pretty simple. Good luck.